Hey guys, Luna here with a new video for the channel. How are you doing? I'm doing great, thank you. Today we have a really special video. The thing is that as we all know, Kendrick finally released the fucking album. We've been waiting for this album ever since Damn. Everyone has been waiting for this album to drop, and finally it was released a couple of days ago. For the last few days I've just been looking at everything that people has been saying about this album. You know, a lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. Me personally, I was kind of disappointed. I reviewed the album, it's on my channel, so if you care to go and watch that video, then give it a try. We all know that Kendrick has a marvelous discography. I mean, there's no bad album in his discography, there's no lame project. Everything is at least good, and that is something that not many rappers can say these days. Therefore, this is my top 6 Kendrick Lamar albums. Yes, top 6. I am including Untitled and Mastered. I think that album counts as an official release. So yeah. Remember that this is only my personal opinion, so if you have your own, leave it down below in the comments and I'll make sure to check it out. I'm saying this because I think a lot of people would hate me for the way I'm putting these albums, okay? So yeah, let's just go on with number 6, and I hope you don't hate me. Section 80 comes at number 6, and I think that I don't really need to explain why. This is obviously the weakest released by Kendrick. Many of the songs here sound a bit underproduced, and Kendrick's flow isn't at its best at this point of his career. Now, this album has a couple of songs that, you know, if they weren't on the album, probably this would have landed a spot higher. But the thing is that they are, and those tracks are No Makeup and the Keisha song. I know many people love Keisha song, but to me the hook is just horrible. And the same thing with No Makeup. I think that chorus sounds like a My Chemical Romance song. I don't like the combination between that kind of sound and Kendrick's rapping. But you know, besides those 2 tracks, I believe the rest of the songs are just okay, and some of the songs are great. For example, High Power, ADHD, Rigor Mortis, Hold Up, one of the most enjoyable songs in Kendrick's discography. I mean, yeah, this album is really good. But compared to everything he did after, I mean, this album falls a bit short. So yeah, this album is great, but the things he did after were better. So yeah, number 6. Listen, before you start to complain and saying that this album is a slow burner, that we have to give enough time for the album to kick in. To Pimp a Butterfly, when it was released, everyone straight up from the release knew that it was a masterpiece. The same thing with Kid Mad City, the same thing with Damn. People know when an album is good and when an album isn't, you know. Maybe if we were just talking about magazines like Pitchfork or the Rolling Stones, yeah, maybe their judgment isn't really accurate. But in terms of the people, we often have a good eye or a good ear to tell when an album is good and when an album is not good. And in this case, sorry, but this album really isn't that great. Is this album better than Section 80? Well, I can argue that this album has better songs. For example, We Cry Together, Mother, Father Time, On to Dairy, you know, those songs are just among the best things that Kendrick has released. But the bad thing is that those songs are joined with the worst things that Kendrick has ever made. So I don't really know how to classify this album. It is not a bad album by any means. Actually, it's a good album, one of the best albums released this year. But overall, you know, this thing doesn't feel like a Kendrick album, really. It's incredibly disappointing how half of the tracks are good and some of them are great, and half of the tracks are just bad, literally bad. I'm sorry, I know many of you like this album, but to me, it's just, it didn't happen. Something didn't click, and I just didn't like it that much. And number 4 is Damn. I know that this album for some people is the best album he has ever released, including Kendrick. Kendrick said that this album was the best thing he ever put out, but I think that was more a publicity stunt more than anything, but okay. But even though I don't think this album falls in the top 3, I can tell you that this is a huge improvement from number 5. You know, this album is way better than Mr. Morale and Section 80. This was a moment where Kendrick grabbed mainstream music and showed that you can do music that is, you know, popular and it can sound on the radio, but at the same time be true to the sound he originally had. And thanks to that, you have songs like Element, Humble, DNA, Loyalty, Love, songs that are completely commercial, and I think that 2 of them went number 1, but still sounds like Kendrick Lamar, thing that Mr. Morale didn't manage to do. And then you have lyrical masterpieces like XXX and Duckworth, and also tracks like Fear, one of the most personal tracks Kendrick has ever written. This album is amazing. I love it. I love the fact that he changed his style completely, even though I love the jazzy tunes he did back when To Pimp a Butterfly was released. I think that this style fits him really well too. And this album is an album I love, so yeah, totally deserves the number 4 spot. Let's just go on with number 3. Listen, I know that this album is just a bunch of throwaways from 2014 and 2015, and even a few from 2016, I believe, but everything sounds so good. Every track is so entertaining, and the fact that it's still this jazzy kind of production, you know, the type I loved. It sounds really good, you know. I believe that there's not a single track in here that I can say that it wasn't good. I enjoyed every single song. I think the songs were fun, and I don't know, it seems like an experiment that really worked out for me. Once again, I know that these are just some throwaway songs, but the throwaway songs are great. I love this album, and I think that if it weren't because the number 2 spot is way better produced and has a few, you know, commercial juggernauts that I think that are enough to put this album below it, this album could take the top 2 easily. You know, I believe this album is great. A lot of people haven't heard this album because, you know, it's a side thing. It wasn't an actual release, but I definitely think that you should give it a try because this album is just incredibly underrated. This album deserves way more attention, so go ahead and give it a try after you watch this video. Good Kid, Mad City is one of the best hip-hop albums ever made, and it's the album that launched Kendrick to the mainstream, you know, to worldwide success with songs like Swimming Pools, you know, Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, and Money Trees. There's so many memorable things about this album, not only from the lyrical point of view, but also the production is so original and so entertaining, you know. It makes you feel like this was the future of rap music. Sadly, it wasn't, you know, the music industry took a different path, a more R&B trap music path. But this album is definitely a legend. This album was released all the way back in 2012, and even today many of the songs on this album are still played monthly by millions of people. To name a few, you know, you have the amazing Drake feature on Poetic Justice, you have Money Trees, Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, Real, Mad City, Swimming Pools, Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, one of the best and most personal songs ever written by Kendrick. Too many good things about this album, and I think that in terms of rapping, this was Kendrick's peak. I think this is the point where he was more comfortable with his sound, with his own sound. And you know, if number 1 weren't as perfect as it is, this could definitely be the best album released by Kendrick, but there's just one more album that I want to talk about. So yeah, great album. If you haven't heard this album, then stop what you're doing except watching this video and go give it a try because the album is amazing. Many people know the songs, some of the songs in that album, but listen to the whole thing because some of the tracks on that album are underrated, and I think that if you give it a try even today, 10 years after the album was released, a whole decade, you'll still find many of the songs enjoyable. So yeah, definitely give it a try. This is not only the best Kendrick Lamar album, this is one of the most perfect albums ever made. One thing is to say that every single song on an album is good. Another thing is to say that almost every song on that album is not only good, but great. But one thing that not many people can say is that they created an album where every song is key for the album's quality. To Pimp a Butterfly is so well crafted, and it's obvious that Kendrick put so much care into the production and the songwriting that if you take one song, the album crumbles down. And this serves as a testimony for how well crafted this album is. From the opening track, Wesley's Theory, one of the best opening tracks ever, not really because of the track itself. If you put the track on their own, maybe the track isn't really that impressive, but as an opener, it sounds great. And it paves the way so well for the second track for Free to come in, you know, that funny ass satirical track. I love it. I just have a laugh every time I listen to that song. And it goes on and on and on and on and on again, you know, every single track complements the previous track and paves the way for the next track. And that is something that only few albums can say. It has a beautiful, dreamy production, and it has a mix of hip hop and jazz music. This combination is nearly perfect on its own. You know, albums like The Low End Theory show us that this combination, when it's used well, it can make the best album ever. I remember the first time I listened to Institutionalized, you know, when the song completely switches and Snoop Dogg starts to sing. That is one of the most significant moments in music for me, because that's the point where I said, I'm listening to something unique. I'm listening to something that it's far from everything that was released contemporary to that album. So yeah, definitely, if you haven't heard this album, go ahead and give it a try, because you're not going to regret it. You're going down on one of the best pieces of music of the last decade, if not the best. Depending on the day, I can tell you that To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar was the greatest album released in the last decade. So yeah, number one, definitely. And I just hope that Kendrick someday will release something nearly as good as this album. That was it for today's video, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other videos that I upload. To make this video, I didn't really need to go back on any of the albums, because I've listened to this album so much that I pretty much know them all pretty well. If you disagree with my ranking, I would like to know what's yours. Leave it down below in the comments and I'll make sure to check it out. I'm really excited because I think that many people will disagree with me on this ranking, so I'm hoping to see how would you rank these albums. So yeah, definitely leave it down below in the comments so I can check it out. Let me know if you want me to review any other albums or rank the discography of any other band. I'll make sure to check out your comments and, you know, fulfill your requests as soon as I can. With that being said, I hope I can see you guys soon with a new video, and yeah, bye.